specific answer. Okay? You know, a little more specific. What do you want to get into that? As a person watching at home, what do you need from that job? What do you need to know from that position? Yes?
The player's perspective of what's going on.
Player's perspective is a good one, for sure. There are a lot of different things that I try to bring to the table. Obviously, the news thing speaks for itself, yes.
Well, inside information that Gary keep around will tell us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Inside information. You know, guess what? There's one person in the clubhouse every day, me. You know, not you guys. So my job is to portray that. Show what I've learned. Show what it's like in there. You know, another thing is, which I try to do is, you guys all watch these games, and you all know who Derek Jeter is, you all know who Mark Sanchez is, butt fumble and all, okay? But you don't really know, much about the guys, I bet, in most cases, okay? You know, you get your Yankee jersey on, you're a fan, I'm sure you know everything about the team. But in most cases, I bet there's plenty of times that, y'all didn't know that Jose Reyes used to play in the streets of the Dominican Republic with a wrapped up newspaper and an orange. You probably didn't know that, So part of my role is, you root for these guys, you watch these games. Wouldn't it be nice to really have a reason to root for somebody? To really know what they are, what they're about, maybe give you a reason to like them, or maybe even a reason to dislike them for all I know. But it humanizes the whole event a little bit. Yeah, we watch sports, it's entertainment, it's fun, it's competition, but, part of the role is, and by the way, that's an awesome social cover.
Thank you.
Part of the role is, you want to know a little bit about what you're watching. Who are these guys? What drives them? Where are they from? What's their background? Things like that makes you want to go buy a jersey, or makes you want to really believe in this guy because you think they're genuine, So I think things like that are what kind of goes into the broadcast. I'm also the eyes and ears down on the field. So, I sit next to the dugout. I know these guys in and out. I've talked to a number of scouts and general managers and whoever else, so I have enough information, and I try to bring something to broadcast a little bit differently than they don't bring. So that's essentially my role with the Mets. Preparation for that day, every day, I do about 140 out of the 162 games, I guess, of the year, so that's a lot. Preparation is every day. I'm doing work, 2-3 hours in the morning on my iPad, trying to come up with different things. Number one, I'm trying to read up about everything going on in baseball. So, when I get to the ballpark, I need to know everything that's going on, whether it's through phone calls or articles that are written, not only about the team that I cover, but about other teams as well. And then I'm also brainstorming ideas. I'm a fan too. Ironically, it has nothing to do with me getting a job, but I grew up a Mets fan too. I know what it's like to be a fan, so I kind of know what I want to watch and what I want to know. So I sit there and I brainstorm, okay, what would be interesting? What would be an interesting angle that I could pursue tonight? And I'll write down some notes that I think might be good things to follow and see if they turn into anything. And sometimes they are nothing. Sometimes I'll go up to a player and be like, hey, I got a question. I was curious, when you were growing up, did you do this? No. All right, well, that sucked. I guess that's not going to work, And that happens, that's okay. But sometimes I'll have a conversation with somebody, and then it turns into a longer conversation with somebody else, and then another conversation, and all of a sudden I have this really cool story. One of my favorite stories that I ever did came on accident. There was catcher Mike Nickius for the Mets, backup catcher, minor league guy, didn't have a lot of time in the major leagues. He really appreciated it. So most people didn't really know anything about this guy. So I knew he was a nice guy, that's about it. So I spent some time talking to him one day, and I had a couple of different ideas of stories that I wanted to do, but I didn't know if they had any merit. I talked to a couple of scouts that had seen him and tried to get some background on him. In our conversations, I said, how his dad was a professional soccer player. And I said, how did it all work out anyway, growing up with your dad, a professional soccer player, and meet your mom? He said, well, it's actually interesting how that all worked out as it said, because I might have never been here if my grandfather wasn't a Brooklyn Dodgers fan. I was like, well, what do you mean by that? His grandfather was a huge Brooklyn Dodger fan. Okay, for those who don't know, Brooklyn Dodgers, a long time ago, played baseball in Brooklyn, moved to LA, okay? So he's a huge Brooklyn Dodger fan, so much so that when the team moved to LA, he moved with them. His grandfather moved to LA with the team. It's there that he went out there and met the love of his life, started a family out there. So it turned into this whole intricate story that maybe Mike Nickius is never born if his grandfather wasn't a Brooklyn Dodger fan. It's pretty neat. So those are the types of things that I try to bring to the broadcast every night. It's different every day. It's a lot of preparation. It's a lot of work every day because, let's face it, once the red light goes on the camera and you're on, there is no edit button. There's no delete. There's no, my editor's going to take this back. You're on. So if you say something stupid, it's out there. Trust me, I could vouch. I've done that before. But it's exhilarating. It's exhilarating. I get to the part and I do all my homework and I'm ready to go, and 6:30 comes and I'm here, and with the microphone, the red light comes on and I'm on. It's me and everybody else, speaking to everybody else at home. It's a great feeling. It's adrenaline like no other. It's different every day, and I'm pretty sure the reason why all of you are here is because you all want different every day. I don't think anyone here really envisions himself in a 9-to-5 office job. That's probably not why you're here. You all are creative in some capacity in this industry. And that's the beauty of it. That's why I love it. There were a lot of people that told me along the way. As many supporters as I had a lot of people that told me, what are you doing? You're not going to be a broadcaster. Come on. You can't. That's a ridiculous aspiration. You have to go through walls to get that job. The amount of people that actually want to do that job and never do that job? That might be true. Those people asked me for tickets today. Because I wanted to do it so badly. And I really wanted to give the best effort I could. And if I failed, I failed. But if I didn't try it to the extent that I knew I could do it, and really give it everything that I had, and then, I'm 50 years old, sitting in whatever job I'm at, and I'm like, wonder what if. Think about what a miserable feeling that would be, If you're later on in life and you've had a couple of, A and B aspirations that didn't turn out, things happen in life for whatever reason, and you're at aspiration number C. You can live with that because, you've lived your life, you've tried, maybe you've failed at certain things. But if you never tried A and B, if you never even went for A and B, don't you think that would be tough to live with? So I think my number one thing that I will tell you today is, and I know it's cheesy, but seriously, go for your dreams. Whatever you believe you can do in this room, you can do it. You can. I had certain good people behind me who backed me from day one, but I had plenty of people who doubted. And when I got out of college and some of my friends were going right to Wall Street and making just absolute ridiculous tons of cash, and I was eating ramen noodles and driving my 1980 Corolla with rust holes on the floor, it was a little rough, not gonna lie. It was like, man, it'd be nice to have some money, and but they didn't necessarily have the same level of happiness that I had, even when I was working at my first job, which is a 1,000-watt radio station that was heard only during the daytime because we shut off at night. Ever heard of a radio station that shuts off at night? That's where I worked. That was my first job. Literally no one listened. I'm talking about the old lady down the street who lived in the old house from 100 years ago. She maybe listened once in a while. And if she wasn't outside raking her leaves and she didn't tell me she listened, I knew there was not a damn person listening to that radio station. But I tell you what, I was happy working there. It was awesome. It was my first job out of college. 1,000-watt radio station. I did everything. I did marketing. I did PR. I did sports. I did news. I did sales, even though I didn't know what I was doing. But I tried to do it because that's what the job entailed. And I did it all for a grand total of, $17,000, $18,000 a year. It was awesome. But it was. It was, because I enjoyed every single second of it. It was such this great learning experience, and it was my first real job in the industry. And it was, live. The mic would go on, and I was live, and I would do my thing. And we'd go out and do remotes at, Joe's mini golf course and give away free Frisbees. But it was the first real job in this industry, and I felt like I was on my way. So that was my first job out of college. Where did I go to college? There's a lot of great schools and universities. I went to William Patterson, Jersey school. Anybody familiar with it? Division III school in North Jersey? I went to a state school, and I made the best out of it. I enjoyed it there. It was a great school. They had a great communications program, and I think that is the important thing, too. I'm not going to lie, I wasn't the greatest student in the world in high school, but when I got to college, I took full advantage of it. And I think you guys, everybody's senior here? Is junior seniors? What's the mix? Oh, everybody. Okay, so we have everybody here. So you guys have a lot of time, too. But I think when you get to that point of picking your school, you really pick what's right for you. Syracuse is a great communication school, there's no doubt about it, but Syracuse isn't right for everybody. It certainly wasn't right for me. So, take that with note. So anyway, I went there for school, got my first job at a 1,000-watt radio station, and just trying to look out from there. Where do I go next in my career? Where do I go? So, try to send out as many resumes as possible. And in this industry, I guess maybe even more so than others, plenty of resumes, get the old open, you know, and this was back before email and your demo tapes online. This was, I actually had to send out actual resumes and a CD, big time stuff. And usually here's what happens. Send it out to the big radio station in New York. Okay, that's that. You know, you would never get a call back. Never ever get a call, not any kind of response that people even received your stuff. But that's what I did. Slowly but surely I started getting a couple more smaller freelance jobs. I did minor league baseball for 4 years for this team called the New Jersey Jackals. They played, a couple of you actually know the New Jersey Jackals? Wow. They are still in existence. They are independent baseball, which means they're not affiliated with any professional team. And basically, I went and did all their broadcasts. I played about 80-something games, I think. And it was interesting. I'll give you one of my good stories from there. I did the games on the road by myself. So I'd go on the road with the team. On the bus trip, I'd have my big old suitcase full of equipment, which was a lot larger back then than it is right now, and a lot heavier and a lot more everything. Didn't work as well either. So just me in my giant suitcase and my backpack going on the road with the team when they went on the road. So one of my favorite stories, we were in Quebec City, Canada, which is a great town. Awesome, awesome town if you've never been there. And we're playing the La Capitale de Quebec in this ancient stadium, Stade Municipal. The stadium was built 100 years ago, and it looked it. But fans were into it. They drew like 10,000 a game, and it was pretty cool. They had all these chants and everything. What wasn't cool is when you do the broadcast by yourself and you have to go to the bathroom and there's not a bathroom anywhere near you. Not cool. Not cool, okay? So I'm in this game, and you know, I'm nervous, I'm a young guy, I'm trying to do what I can, and hopefully some big baseball executive is listening and give me a major league job, you know? So I'm doing the game, it's like 5th inning. Really gotta go to the bathroom. So we go to the commercial. I'm asking the people in the press box, hey, I didn't see a bathroom. Where's the bathroom? Because this press box is on the roof of the stadium, on the roof. You had to go like zigzag stairs. I'm talking like one of these. So the guy's like, oh, it's down on the bottom floor. I was like, excuse me, what? So I was like, okay, 5th inning. I don't know if I could go into the 4 innings, but we'll see. So I was weighing my options, you know. Are there any giant bottles around? What do I do? How do I get by this? So finally, we get to the 7th inning. I'm going to burst. There's no other options. We're in a wide open press box on the roof. There's nothing I can do unless I literally just go right there. So I said to my engineer, I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. As soon as the final out of this inning, I mean, literally, as soon as you hear me say out, inning over, I'm slamming my headset down. I'm going to book down the stairs, all the way down, all the way to the stairs, and not only to the ground floor, but to the corner of the damn stadium with the rest of the public, okay? So there's fans in there too. So literally, you know, hey, whatever, ground ball to third base, and that'll do it for the inning. Slam. Boom, I'm gone. I sprint as fast as I can. I'm knocking people over. You know, I go in the bathroom, I literally go like this and knock people over, go as fast as I can, sprint back upstairs. I'm out of breath as it is. As I start going on the windy catwalk type stairs to go up to the press box, I see first pitch of the inning, ground ball right back to the pitcher. I was like, oh, God, 1 out. I missed that. All right, so I'm still sprinting. I'm getting closer. Now I'm on the final catwalk to the press box. Next pitch of the inning, popped up to the catcher. 2 pitches, 2 outs. I'm like, oh. I get in the press box, like, all right, I'm back. I'm out of breath. He's like, you ready? I was like, just send it back. So I take a deep breath, and he cuts off commercial, and I'm like, as I'm about to say we're back, the 3rd pitch of the inning is a ground ball to first. So literally that inning on radio was, welcome back, ground ball to first, that'll do it. Yeah, my broadcasting career was off and running. It was excellent stuff. But you know, you have to laugh it off. Things happen. You know, this is live radio, this is live TV. These things are going to happen, and it was a learning experience for me. My learning experiences, definitely go to the bathroom for the broadcast. Always very important in this industry. A couple of things that I did along the way from there. I started to get other freelance jobs, started doing little TV jobs. Unfortunately, the one negative is a lot of these smaller radio and TV jobs don't really exist anymore. It's a hard thing. You know, when I have people talk to me all the time about getting started, a lot of the smaller places where I had internships or had work or freelance work, economy has cut them down. There's not many of them around as there were when I was there. So while I cut my teeth editing highlights for a high school football show in Fort Lee, New Jersey, for literally 9 hours of work for $25, still it was my first editing, getting to use that. Those places are harder to come by now because, the economy and places like that have shut down and don't really exist. So that's kind of a harder thing. Anyway, I worked for Time Warner Cable. I got some freelance jobs here and there, and I got to the point where I felt like I was good enough to get a big job. I really did. I felt like my talent was there, but I couldn't get anybody to give me the shot. So I quit. And I sold cars at Pine Belt Chevrolet on Route 36. Maybe you bought a Tahoe from me. Maybe your parents bought some kind of Malibu from me. It's very possible. You should ask them. But I quit. I pretty much had it. And I was so frustrated with the fact that I wasn't making any money and I couldn't get people to call me back. And I just would watch people and I'm like, come on, I'm at least as good as that person. I know I am. But doing it for 7, 8 years, I got annoyed. And so I quit. And I went through the Sunday newspaper and I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And it was Pine Belt Chevrolet. And I walked in, said, never sold cars, but my name's Kevin. I'll guess I'm your car salesman. I said, listen, there's one thing though. I kind of do radio on the side. And he's like, yeah, whatever. Go ahead, get out on the floor. So, ironically, after I got there, I started doing some, I got an opportunity. I started doing some part-time, very, very part-time stuff for WCBS 880 in New York. Finally, I got a call back in an audition, and they said, we don't have anything definite every week, but, we'll use you when people get sick or whatever. So I mentioned this to my boss again, and I said, listen, I might need to leave early certain days, they have me doing this, and I really need to take care of this opportunity. He's like, as long as you get your stuff done, I don't care. So the one night I did it, he's driving home, and he didn't even realize or even hear what I said, but he was driving home and I guess had on 880 and heard me. So he came in the next day, he's like, you weren't lying, you actually are on the radio. You weren't kidding. I was like, yeah, I'm serious, that's what I want to do, He's like, wow. So he became ultra supportive, and really wanted me to pursue that while working and selling cars. So it became this great situation where, I had my day job or night job or whatever it is, but anytime I got a call from CBS, he let me go, whatever it was. And he was like a big supporter. As a matter of fact, I do car commercials now. He owns Pine Belt Nissan in Towns River, and I do the commercials. Maybe you've seen them, they're funny, I know. But, if you call me up, hey, can you do my commercials? Why not, right? This is a guy that really helped me get a big break. So now I help sell Nissans for him because he's a great guy. And I send people there all the time. So the bottom line is he kind of said, pursue your dream as long as when you're here, you work. And I was one of the best salespeople there. But ironically, it took me to quit to really realize what my vision was. And to realize that I needed to really give it a full another shot before I was really ready to move on. And if I did, if I went another year or so and really just went all out and couldn't get that opportunity, shake my hands and be like, all right, you know what? It was a good run. Wasn't meant to be, I guess, and then move on. But you know what? It was meant to be. I got a little lucky. I got some timing went my way, which obviously helps. And CBS called more and more, made me a regular shift. And then all of a sudden I was the afternoon anchor at CBS. And then while I was there, WFAN radio called, and I was working for them part-time. Soon I was working for WFAN, which is a sports station in New York, biggest in the country, full-time. I was a Jets reporter. I reported on all kinds of sports, talk show host, update anchor for them. That was where I wanted to be all those years. Didn't happen overnight, it took me till I was 30 to get there. But I like to feel like I worked hard for it, and I persevered through it, and I got there. Everybody has a different story, but that's mine. And then once I got to WFAN, excuse me, doors started to open. People started to hear me and, see me around at big events. And all of a sudden, when I was at these events before and people would kind of knock me over, they'd be like, oh, I know you. You're Kevin. You're on the fan. There's a little luck involved in this business, for sure. But I like to think that I created my own luck, too. By staying with it and working hard and really doing whatever I had to do, working every kind of night and weekend imaginable, and putting my blood, sweat, and tears into this. And, you know, once I was there, really doors started to open. I started to get some TV stuff, and then eventually landed where I am now. Been the Mets field reporter for 6 years. So that's been my journey. It wasn't short necessarily. I don't think it's over. I think I have a long way to go. But I'm really glad that I didn't give up. You know, in a way, quitting and selling cars was one of the best things that I did. Because it just kind of showed me that, you know what, you're not ready for this yet. This is not what you want to do yet. You need to give one more shot, and you know, and it's funny, by doing that and really seeing that, you know, this is not what I want, I think it inspired me and drove me even more to get what I want. So it was a pretty big thing. It was a pretty big thing. So yeah, I'm lucky. I get to basically, again, watch baseball and football for a living. I think one thing besides, you know, the message, which is follow your dreams, which I think is so huge, is persistence in this business is a big thing. And I'm not talking about persistence with being over the top and annoying people left and right, but I'm talking about you never know where someone's going to rub your back and help you out. Never know. You know, when I was getting going, one of the jobs that I got, one of my first television jobs, I was at a high school softball game, as a matter of fact. And I was there just talking to a guy in the stands. Turned out he was a producer for Comcast. We were just kind of BSing, really, nothing big. He was asking me what I do, asking him what he does, and you know, so we shook hands, we exchanged business cards, whatever. We had a nice day, and I emailed him a couple times to keep in touch. And turned out about 8 months later, he called me out of the blue and offered me a job. Comcast started a new show. They were doing a high school sports reporting show, tri-state area. Wanted me to be their North Jersey reporter. Okay. Contacts are really important in this thing. Really, really important. And a story like that happens all the time. You know, when someone gets it, you may meet someone at a lower level, but then when they get a job, they're going to go with people that they like, people that they know. You know, that's why interns and meeting people and keeping in touch with people. And honestly, this is stupid, may sound ridiculous. Just being nice to people is a big deal. It is. Being nice. You know, we hired a couple interns at our station that were just above and beyond everybody else. And interning can be tricky because you want to be a go-getter, but you don't want to be, you know, up the boss's, you know what. But these two guys were so up and at 'em every day. They did extra. I mean, I would get to the ballpark, and they would come. I never asked for this. They would come find me and give me like all the day's stats, all these notes that I never asked for, but they did it. And they just stood out like that in everybody's eyes. And you know what? The internship got done, and that's why I hired both of them. Little things, anything you can do to make yourself stand out. Because when you just email out a resume, you're a resume. But when you're a face to the resume, it means the world. It means the world. It really does. All right, I have a couple more things I'm going to do, then I think we're going to have a little fun. But I want to have some questions and answers. I know you guys have some more. I've talked for about 25 minutes. I don't want to bore you all. So give me some questions and answers before we move on to the next part of this here. What do you get? Anything is fine. Just whatever I answer does not go on Twitter or Facebook, okay? Deal? What you got?
So right now, who's your favorite person to work with?
You're asking me about my current crew? They're great. I mean, my announcers that I work with are Gary Cohen, Keith Hernandez, and Ron Darling. Keith Hernandez and Ron Darling were terrific players in their time, and they're now both terrific broadcasters. And they're all very different personalities. But I think it kind of works. You know, we're together all the time. I mean, we fly together 85% of the time. You know, again, think about this. You know, we're together 140 days almost in a row for baseball season. You know, and we're traveling on the same planes. We're eating the same dinners together. I'm with them a lot more than I'm with my family. So it's important to get along with them at the very least in a professional way, but they're also great, and they're very different personalities. I mean, Ronnie is very laid back, can I tell you, everything's subdued and great type of guy. Gary is very focused, intense, amazing at what he does. And then Keith is Keith. For those of you who know Keith Hernandez, yeah, that's him. He's out of his mind. He's the best. He is the freaking best. I mean, you go out to him and you have dinner with him and you're dying laughing by the time dinner's over. He is awesome. But he'll also take care of you. You know, I am not a starstruck person at all. I never have been. But I'll never forget the first day that I worked for SNY. I was in spring training, 6 years ago, and I did my first game. You know, I'm nervous. I don't know what I'm doing. I just started working in TV. And just want to get through the day without messing up so badly that they want to fire me. And after the game, Keith came downstairs, and he's usually the first person out. Like literally, the game ends and he's on the highway. But that game ended, and he came downstairs to find me and shake my hand and say, "Hey, did a great job today." That meant the world. You know, like little things like that, just huge. So it's a really good group. We all have very different personalities, but I think because of that, we all kind of get along well, and I guess kind of mother each other
Do
around.
you interact with like Strawberry or Ovita or
Yeah. I mean, I see them all the time. Not as much, but I see them all the time. Yeah, I mean, that's another weird thing is that Darryl Strawberry was like he was like the guy I looked up to when I was a kid, and you know, we play ball and I try to emulate him. You know, we'd be in the playground playing stick ball or whatever, and I'd just be there with a high leg kick, even though I was a righty, he was a lefty. So the first time I meet him, you know, he knew me from being on TV, really. He's not around all the time. He comes up to me, and he's still this hulking guy. I mean, he's 6'6", he's still in really good shape, he's jacked. Comes up to me, "Hey, what's up there, K-Dog?" And I'm like, I'm sitting there, like, in this hug, like, time slowed, and I'm like, the guy that I used to emulate playing wiffle ball is giving me a bear. This is freaking cool. So, yeah, there's some pretty cool moments, yes.
But this should be a quick question. I'm wondering about that radio station music that was off at night. What happened? Did they just leave it off, or did they play test time or something?
They had only a daytime-only license from the FCC.
But what happens at night, though? Is it just silent?
Off, silent, yep, no test
Didn't
patterns.
like another radio wave pick up or transfer?
Yeah, they had a daytime-only license. I don't remember the exact reason, but believe it or not, we're on 1500, channel 1500, and WTOP in Washington is 1500, and their signal is ginormous, and somehow they had the rights, even in North Jersey, and because the signals interfered, obviously in the winter we'd have to go off earlier because in the nighttime the signal travels farther. So I don't know the gist of it, but essentially daytime only. Hours change. You know, in the summer we were on till 7:30. December we literally were off the air at 4:30. 4:30. But yeah, we just went off, transmitter off, silence. Very bizarre. Who else? Let's go here.
So I mean, I feel like it's tough to do football on the radio to like really bring people to the game. I mean, like I have a tough time doing it. So how do you like try and keep the audience like listening and intrigued with what's going on in the game?
I'm glad you asked. I brought some fun materials to pass around. Okay, so I mentioned that preparation is a big deal for everything, and especially for play-by-play. Enlighten me. Do you guys do all the sports events on radio here, or tell me about what goes on here?
We don't have sports teams here.
Okay, there you go. Well, do you do like say Wall High School or how? Okay. So what football are you talking about?
No, I mean for you. I mean.
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
I thought you were saying like
No,
what do you do?
yeah.
Okay, my fault. Well, anyway, I'll bring that up. A real big thing with, like I said, is preparation, okay? So I brought these just to give you something to look at, an idea of what I do for a football game. These are my charts for the Cowboys Saint game, which is like the second to last game of the year, regular season. They're not everything that I have, but these are a big part of my preparation. I'll pass them around so you get an idea. But what I do is I go through both teams, okay, and on these charts, this is the Cowboys offense, this is the Saints defense, okay? I have all the guys that are starting, they're a little bit bigger, all the backups, and I put a number of different things on here, stats, mostly interesting stats, some personal things. I usually have another pad with some other notes that I want to get to, or if I have downtime during the game to get to. But this is really where it comes through. You know, I'll make notations of guys, especially that have good stories, guys that are interesting, whatever their story is. You know, Jimmy Graham barely played football, he was a basketball player at Miami, so I'll make little notations to Jimmy Graham makes a big play to break, go into that story. But basically, your goal on the radio is so much different than television. You know, having done both, on the radio, you are the quarterback, you are the guy. You have to direct everything because you're driving in your car. You have no idea what's going on. So my goal, my job is, I need to describe it well enough where you could sit there and close your eyes and picture exactly what's going on, okay? You need to know exactly what's going on from the time they line up to the time the play is going on and when the play is done. And then when the play is over, that's when my color analyst jumps in and explains a little bit in more detail what happened. We're painting the picture for you because you can't see it. On television, though, a little different. Has anybody, any sport, had the radio up while watching a game on TV? Okay. What do you notice? What do you notice? What have you noticed from doing that? I thought she had her hand up. Yeah. What have you noticed from doing that? Right. Right. When you're on television, you don't have to be because people see it. You know, when you're on television, you have to go with the important things, describe the important things that are going on, but you don't have to be as descriptive because you don't have to tell the people that the ball is hit down the right field line and so is running so hard because people can see that. So you have to be more of a pick and choose important information type guy. For example, with football, I'm going to pass these around just to give you guys an idea, again, just to look at what I do to prepare for a game. But let's say I'm doing a football game at home, okay? I'm doing a football game on TV. Cowboys at the line of scrimmage, Tony Romo's under center. I might just say, 1st and 10, Dallas at the New Orleans 35. Shut up, let Romo go back to pass, look around, throws it, he's got Witten. 1st down, Cowboys. That's probably it. It's probably because you saw it, you see him. That same play, if I'm on the radio, you're not seeing it. So I'm trying to communicate to you, I'm trying for you to dream this perfect picture in your head of exactly what's going on. All right? 1st and 10, Cowboys of the New Orleans 35. All right, down and distance, you know where they are, right? Twins to Romo's left. So he's got 2 wide receivers out there. Pro set. He's got 2 backs behind him this way. Strong side right. Tight ends over this way. Romo back to pass. Looks right. Nothing there. Comes back left. Pumps. Now we're going deep. Left sideline for Des Bryant. He's got it at the 10. He's in for a touchdown. See the difference? Do you see the difference in that? Could you all probably envision exactly what that play looked like? Just by the words that I chose? That's why I've always loved radio. Because it's all up to you. It's all up to you to create this picture of what people are seeing at home. And depending on how good you are, it could be a great experience. You ever been flipping through and a game's on, and maybe it's not the Yankee game that you were desperately wanting to hear, but just the game. Have you ever stayed with it for more than 20 seconds if the person sounds interesting? And then, wow, okay, it sounds like a good game. How do you know if it's a good game? You just turned it on. Because that person is making it sound like a good game. It's entertainment. This is the entertainment industry. People have an attention span of 10 seconds. They go on YouTube if they're bored. Your job is to make them stay with you and watch you. Because you know what? Sometimes the Mets game sucks. But I got news for you. We have to be entertaining, and we have to, be forthright and not only say what's going on, but maybe get a little goofy, have a little fun, maybe get opinionated about an important topic that might invite people a reason to stay with it. That's part of the industry. But I like that question. I'm glad you brought that up. Who else has got something for me? Yes.
I feel like pretty much with baseball more than football, it's conversation, like you're just saying, more than like play-by-play at some points in the game. Will you guys actually prepare for that and talk about what you're going to talk about before the broadcast, or is that kind of spontaneous?
I think more so, everybody hear the question? The question was about how many things really are planned during a baseball broadcast and how many things are spontaneous. I think a lot more of it is spontaneous, to be honest. There are certain things that we obviously plan. We'll go over certain things what we want to do at the beginning of the broadcast. There's a lot of planning that goes on with inside the television truck in terms of everybody's got to be on the same page in terms of what graphics need to be built, what audio we're going to use, if we're going to use some old video, what types of highlights we might use. Maybe we're going to focus on a certain player tonight. Maybe we're going to focus on Ryan Braun tonight, so it's got a lot of Ryan Braun footage. That has to be communicated so the guys in the truck are ready. And then maybe there is a general feeling like, hey, tonight, 5th inning, let's go in this direction if it feels right. And that's the other thing. Sometimes it doesn't feel right. You may plan something, but you're doing a live sporting event, so the game can kind of tell you where to go. For an example, if I have a if I have a story that's more of a lighthearted story, and I'm going to do it this, we decide that I'm going to come on this inning and do it, okay? Producer gets in my ear, Kev, after the first batter, bring in, do that thing on whatever. Okay, first batter gets hit in the head. I'm not coming on. I can't come and do a story about so-and-so at a jump rope competition, somebody just got drilled in the face. So it's context. There's plenty of times we've had ideas, but the game makes us go in a different direction. I think a lot of it is being prepared to be spontaneous, if that makes sense. Being prepared for all of these different things. None of them might come up. All of them might come up, but the bottom line is you're ready to do whatever it is. Because sometimes it's really hard to prepare for a live sporting event in terms of being specific, talking about that one thing. I think the one exception to that is when there's been a serious topic. So, let's see. All right, so like last year, I think this was in spring training, but last year, the Mets ownership went through this whole issue with Madoff and their financial things. It was, it was not a baseball story, it was a news story. So we met to really discuss how to talk about that topic because it's a little different. We're not talking about the home run leader or whatever. We're talking about something that's a little different. If we're going to have maybe a serious discussion on steroid stuff, we might go over an outline of things that maybe we should talk about or things that maybe we shouldn't talk about. Things like that. But I think more of it's probably spontaneous than you believe. Who else has something?
Do you remember doing anything like special during the time that Gary Carter passed away?
Well, the one thing that I did with that is I went to his service down in Florida. So that was more about Gary Carter, for those who don't know, was iconic catcher for the Mets. He had a battle with brain cancer, died way too young. Mets fans love this guy. Talking about covering something, again, a little different than the norm. So I went to his service, which was not only baseball people, but the public as well. And it's about, it's about getting across how he was loved by the fans, but it's also about kind of being respectful too. It's one of those things where you really have to see the mood of it, and really the mood of that was set by some of the older players that were there. The way they talked about him, you could kind of tell what he meant to them. Like, there wasn't a guy who didn't just gush about it. I didn't know Gary Carter. So how do I find out information? I talked to different people about him. And there wasn't, you could tell. If you asked him, hey, what's this guy like? No. This was more like, this guy's amazing. He's the greatest team I've ever had. Here's why. So, I come away from that and basically, look, it's a sad night. Guy whose life got taken way too early, but it's amazing all the lives that he's touched. So it's one of those things you have to be respectful, feel it out, and again, the job the whole time is to tell people or show people at home what it is they're missing, because you're not there. So I have to be there for all of you. That's what I have to do. I would like to, how about we do a couple more questions? What do we have, 12:45, 12:40 minutes? Sorry, my voice is kind of going. That's from a week being in bed. Anyway, I would like to do a little fun in a minute. So let's take a few. Do we have any more questions? Before we put a couple people on the spot. All right, let's do a few more questions.
You were hindsight kind of no hitter. What was going through your mind? You were one of the first people there. What was going through your mind?
I was the first person interviewed. That's a good question. All right, for non-Mets fans or non-baseball fans, Johan Santana threw the first no-hitter in team's history. It's a long time. It's never been done. So he did that last year. And the question was, what was going through my mind? It's a good question. I think for baseball fans, you kind of know that once you get about the fifth inning or so, you start to say, oh, all right, fifth inning, no hits, maybe this can happen. So I remember actually that night, I did a report from the restaurant up in left field. I was sitting there sipping a coffee, and I keep score of all the games. But sometimes I have to run over here to interview somebody, or I have to go here to do something that's sponsored, or I move around the stadium a lot. So I did a report from this restaurant outside on the deck, and then the guy brought me a coffee. So I was sitting there watching the game, sipping a coffee for the moment until I had to go do my next thing. So, I'm writing the score after the inning, and I'm like, oh wow, there's no hits. Holy cow, look at that. And they didn't really talk about it on the broadcast yet. So I think all of us were starting to figure, all right, you know, they've been down this road a million times. Guys have gotten close. So, but right then and there, I'm starting to think, okay, if this is a no-hitter, I'm going to be the first person interviewed. It's going to be on the field. It's going to be on TV, and a lot of people are going to be watching. And I'm sure every national TV network around the country is going to pick it up and use it, which they did. So my number one thought is, don't F this up. Don't F this up. So, and I think it brings up another question about interviewing, which I'll touch on. But what essentially happened is, you know, I moved my spot right next to the dugout after that, because I really wanted to see what was going on there. And I know we have cameras that shoot into the dugout, but it's a little different. I could hear it sometimes, and I could really see what's going on. So I was just watching, and the thing that I took most, and I don't even think I said it on the air. I mentioned it to our producer, but I didn't feel like it was worth it for me to go on the air because it was just such a, the pictures told the story, you know. Anyone who was watching knew the story, so I didn't feel like it was enough for me, but I knew it was enough for me to use in questions later. I just remember how nervous Terry Collins was. Because Santana is a guy, for those who don't know, came off major shoulder surgery. Before that game, that day, questions to Terry Collins in the pregame presser. What is the most pitches you think you'd allow to throw? I mean, 110 max. He's at 128, and it's, you know, whatever, the 8th inning. So I just remember how nervous he was, and he and his pitching coach, just like genuine nervous for the guy. Like, did not want to ruin this guy's career, but knows the history of it, and knows that this is something that's never been done in the, you know, 50-year existence of the Mets. So he's pacing, and he's really nervous, and he just keeps shaking and moving his hands and twitching, and he's not like that ever. And, you know, I remember Santana coming in after the 8th inning, and Terry goes up to talk to him and ask him, hey, you know, think you're going to stay out there? And he took the ball and put it in his bat and in his glove and held his hands like this. So he's talking to Terry like this, and I'm like, there is no way in the world this guy's coming out of this game. You know, I think he tried to take him out, but there was just no way. So it was interesting to see that, and just see that, you know, Santana, I'm sure, and he'll never admit it, I'm sure Santana knew that he was doing irreparable harm to his arm. But it's one of those things, you're in the moment. How do you not go for that? You know, it kind of goes with what we were talking about. You know, that dream is right in front of you. How do you take yourself out? So watching that all unfold was interesting. And then my thought process was the interview. That was my responsibility for the night, not screwing up the interview, making it a good interview. And, you know, when I interview people, I'll talk about that because I think that's an important thing. But I don't think too far ahead. I usually think one or two things that I need to ask this person, and then I just listen to what they say. So, game ends, go on the field, and you know it's just a great feeling, and you watch the joy in his face, everybody's going nuts. And I just remember him, I was in the dugout with Ed Coleman, who was our radio guy. And I remember him walking into the dugout, like literally tears coming down his face. Came up to me and gave me like a giant bear hug, and he's just like, the emotion is unbelievable. Like I was like, wow, like it was cool. Like I got chills. It was that cool. Part of it because he's a great guy, and like he's just this awesome guy to be around. So like that kind of told me like the way to go with it. You know, I was gonna get specific, and you know say, hey, you know, 9th inning, what are you thinking, blah blah whatever. But he was so emotional that he didn't need me to. All he needed me to do was turn on the mic and put it in front of his face. So when we went out in front of the field, all I did, which is not even a question, which I would not normally do, but it just seemed right. I just said, Johan Santana, you just threw the first no-hitter in New York Mets history. And he just was, it's unbelievable, you know, he went off. He just went, you know, I don't know if you guys saw the interview, he was just so emotional, it was so cool. I didn't have to do much. I just listened to him and then followed up with the next questions. You know, I got to the questions that needed to be asked. Was he concerned about his arm? Things like that. But I think for interviews, how many people have seen interviews? Sports, news, anything. People interview. What is your biggest pet peeve about people that get interviewed? Someone's got to give me one. Interviewer talks too much. That's a great. That is a great one. Here's one of mine. The question, talk about. Talk about the game. What does that mean? Well, about 7:05, first pitch was thrown, then after that there was a guy who sold hot dogs. What does that mean? Talk about that's the worst question ever. And look, I ask a gazillion questions a year, it's my job. I ask some dumb questions, I've done it, I laugh at myself. But interviewing is an art. You're going to use it your whole life. If you're never on air, you're going to use interviewing. You're going to interview for jobs. You're going to interview people if you buy a stove for your house. You know, you need to know certain facts. So how do you find out those certain facts? Let's get a volunteer and find out. Because I think interviewing is a pretty big thing. Who wants to interview me? I'll be David Wright this particular time. Come on, someone's got to come and show some moxie. Come on, give me someone. Someone's going to be the interviewer. Extra points. Let's go here. What's on the head? All right, here we go. I'm going to set the stage, and you're going to do the interviewing. I know this is kind of off the cuff, so it's weird, but I want to have a little fun. Okay, so here we go. I'm David Wright. We just got down to Florida for spring training. I'm a lot less rich than David. We just got down to Florida for spring training. We're in a game, spring training game, which are very laid back. It's just chill. And you're interviewing me in the dugout. This is the first time the fans at home have seen David Wright. He's got his shiny new contract. You're a Mets fan, so I probably don't have to tell you what to ask in terms of that. But I want you to ask me a series of questions just like we're hanging out in the dugout.
So David, how you doing? I think all Mets fans want to know how you're feeling before the season starts now.
I feel great. You know, it's exciting. You know, this team is back with a lot of good pieces, and I'm just ready to get going.
Got a big contract signed over the break. What do you think of that? How do you think the team is going to respond to you coming back and adding some pieces around you?
I mean, you know, I just I wanted to come back from the get-go, and you know, I really wanted to be here, and it's just so exciting to be back and have a chance to finish my career as a Met and hopefully finish what I started and win a championship.
Now you had a pretty decent season last year. You started off great. Towards the end of the year, kind of dropped off a little bit as the rest of the team. What do you think you have to do this year to continue your success and bring the team up from a decent year last year?
Well, you know, I think it's just about working and continuing to work. You know, I'm going to work my tail off and do what I can to get better and try and make this team better, get into the playoffs.
What do you think that over the spring, it's a little nice time to relax, but also get back into the swing of things? Maybe not off baseball. What do you think some of the guys can do from the team? Maybe get together and maybe build morale and get a team chemistry up.
That's a good question. You know, Terry's done some things. We have a little bowling alley we do. It gets competitive. It's kind of fun. And I think it kind of gets guys into each other, and you know, it makes guys pull for one another. So I think things like that are important, especially in spring training. It's a good job right here. I love it. Now you're going to be David.
I'm going to be David.
Okay. All right. Now, that was very good. He obviously knows what he's talking about. He obviously had some good questions that most fans would want to hear. Okay. What did you hear from me in that interview? Come on. What did you hear from me? Generally, nothing. Cliches. That's what you heard from me. That's what players are trained to do. They're trained to deflect your questions to give you nothing. So your job as an interviewer is to get something, okay? Now his last question about the bowling one, I gave the bowling answer. His question about the team camaraderie was a good one, and I wasn't expecting that, so I gave a better answer. I wasn't really expecting that line of questioning. It was a good question, and I kind of gave more of a human answer. All athletes are trained to deflect your questions. Your goal is to break them. I sound like Rocky IV. We will break them. But how do you do that? How do you get away from cliches? And I preface that by saying some guys are a lot harder than others. Some guys are very good at keeping the face, and you know they won't give you anything. You have to work. Well, David's very good at it. He's very good. He's gotten a lot better in terms of expressing himself. But you have to be a good interviewer. You have to ask the right question. Here's what I mean. Okay, ready, David?
Ready.
David, good to see you. How was your off season?
It was nice. I signed a nice contract and great to be back with the team and feeling good and getting ready for the season.
What kind of things did you do this off season work-wise?
Well, I worked with a bunch of my fellow teammates. I worked with Evan Longoria. We're buddies down in Virginia. We went to one of our team facilities. We worked out. We did some weight training and some fielding just to get back in the swing of things.
What kind of weight training?
Well, I did some parametrics. I did some CrossFit. Some of those things that maybe I hadn't done yet, and just to get back into my fitness.
Have you ever done CrossFit before?
Actually, no. It's the first time I actually did it, and it was very difficult.
There's our answer. Did you see what I meant? That was the answer you're looking for. What did he do this offseason? I worked out with my friends, hung out. He did CrossFit. He's never done it before. Baseball's a hard sport. Stamina, he took a hit last year. He just admitted that he was tired at the end of the year, whether you heard it or not. That's what he said. Did you hear that? He didn't use those words, but he said he was tired last year. So how is he going to combat that? He took CrossFit to up his stamina. There's your story. Did you hear how I got there? I kept asking him, follow up and ask. They don't want to tell you. And he didn't want to tell me. He did a good job. But after I said how, why, then all of a sudden they tell you. It doesn't always work. It doesn't always work. Believe me, there's plenty of times I do that. I knock on the door doesn't open. But that's the art of interviewing. You're never going to get what you want if you don't ask for it. Okay? That was great. I appreciate another hand. We got a few more minutes. So what's I need two hands. I need one at a time. I need two hands. We're gonna play Let's Be a Baseball Field Reporter. Okay? It's an easy, fun game. We'll be on camera and have fun. Or we'll go you and we'll go you. Okay, we can take three. We have a little time. All right, so let's pick Ohio State first. Come on up. One at a time. We'll do one at a time. Okay? Hey, Matt. Okay, here we go. So, you are going to be a field reporter. Part of the fun about live television is that it's live television, and sometimes you can't really plan for everything. Okay? And sometimes you just have to use your eyes and your ears to the best of your ability. Now, there are certain things that are opinions, certain things that you describe as what you saw or what you think you saw. But one thing you cannot misconstrue is are facts. Specifically when it comes to an injury. How do I mean that? There is a difference by saying, guys, I saw Derek Jeter walking back inside the clubhouse. He was clutching his right hamstring, certainly favoring that hamstring. Don't know if that's exactly what it is, but clearly it's a right leg issue that's bothering Jeter. There's that versus this. Guy saw Derek Jeter clearly tore his hamstring off the bone, walking back, he's in trouble, probably season over. You can't say specific injury. You can't say, you have no idea. He could be grabbing his leg, but he could have had a heart attack and on the way in, hit the wall or something like that. You have no idea. So your goal in those situations is to report what you see. Okay, to your best of your ability. Now, sometimes you're going to get a team official that'll give you some information. Sometimes you won't. Okay. So let's. Here is the scenario. I'm going to give you a scenario. Let's use pick a player. We'll go Jose Reyes. Okay. Here's the situation. Jose Reyes, ground ball to shortstop. Okay. Came up a little weird. Taken out of the game. We don't know why. What you saw the play, but you were also back behind the clubhouse getting ready for another shoot to do something, to interview a player. You saw Reyes come back and walk back and kind of go like this, kind of stiff leg, grab this. He looked at you, gave you one of these. He looked at you, saw you look, and gave you one of these. Okay? That's all you saw. I want you to give me a report. And why this is important. Here's why this is important. Okay? There's not a lot here to report. Be creative. But as a fan, Mets fans at home, you see Reyes go out, you're like, oh my God, Reyes is hurt, he's dead, what's going to happen? You want to know anything. You want to know anything that you can find out before the post game when the manager tells you what's wrong. All right? So we're going to get that. All right? So Max, right? All right, so here we go. So you're just going to, what you want to do here is just set the stage. Hey guys, behind the scenes, however you want to do it, be creative. Just say what you saw in whatever way you want to do it, and then send it back up to the booth. Okay? All right, here we go. Well, we just saw last inning, Reyes seemed like something happened on that ground ball to short, and he missed his turn at bat. Let's go down the field to Matt. Matt?
I'm down in the field here at stadium here.
No naming rights for this stadium.
Exactly. We don't want to get into any copyright issues right now. The stadium is currently, they're having arguments as far as naming it. To do with the sponsors. But we did see Reyes, as he was picking up that ground ball, kind of clutching the left side of his leg, No one really knows what's going on right now, but it looks like he's having a little bit of difficulty with his leg, but he should be fine. Just going in the dugout just to make sure everything's okay right now. We'll let you know as soon as we know any more information.
All right, that was good. What was the one thing that was not acceptable?
It should be fine.
No, you have no idea. You should be fine.
Maybe he broke his leg.
He could have broken his leg. You have no idea. But you could incorporate the thing where he looked at you and maybe gave you a smile, maybe gave you whatever, and just anything you can give is a good thing. But you can never assume. All right, great job on that one. I'll give you an example for me. You know, and those injury things are always tough. Sometimes you get help from the team and they'll tell you what it is. Sometimes you won't find out until after the game. This year we were in Atlanta, and in Atlanta I have a good spot. I'm literally, the dugout is right close to home plate, and I'm literally right next to the dugout. So I could see, hear everything. It's great. There was an instance this year where Josh Tolley wasn't catching. He was on the bench that day. I forget who was hitting. Some lefty was hitting. And hit a shot. You know, he's up at play, hits a line drive rocket that goes like, you know, literally past me. Like, I did one of these, and it hit Tolley in the head in the dugout. It was wicked. Like, I mean, you know, he immediately just went like that, and it was too quick for our cameras to see. Like, it happened that fast. Like, we didn't have a camera in the dugout at that point. So, you know, I said, hey, that almost hit me. I saw it. You know, like, all right, do you want to do something on it? I was like, yeah. So I waited a second because I wanted to see his reaction and see what would happen. And then I said, you know what, hang on, let me see if I can find anything else out. So I went back behind, there's like a hallway that kind of goes near their clubhouse. And one of the guys in the clubhouse came out who was not a trainer, because the trainers wouldn't be able to say anything to me. I said, is he okay? Is this serious? I didn't, you know, I wanted to see where it was. If this was like, holy cow, he's going to the hospital, he's a fractured skull, or you know, he might have a concussion, but he's stable. I wanted to see kind of the tone. He came in, he's like, he's all right, he's sitting at his locker. I was like, okay. You know, obviously if this was something where he had brain damage or something severe, he would have not been sitting at his locker. So at least I knew, okay. So the way I did the report is the guys, you know, I stand right here, they showed me on camera in proximity to the dugout. So this line drive just came flying by super fast, and I said, it hit Tolley. I said, I'm not sure if it hit him square or if it ricocheted right off the wall next to him and hit him. I said, but it hit him hard. He immediately clutched his right ear, and then was taken down to the club. I said, now keep in mind, Tolley's had, you know, whatever it is, 5 concussions in his career. I said, the good news is, though, I did get told by someone that he is sitting comfortably in the clubhouse. So what does that do? That tells you that he's not dead, which is a good thing because it was nasty. And it tells you, look, he could be hurt. He could have a really severe concussion, but he's probably at least going to be okay. All right, so that was the goal of that whole report. But you can see how it can be dicey. You can't just make things up there. That's a very difficult thing. Let's go one more before we run out of time. Let's do we'll do one more field work. Tyler? Yes. Okay, pick a player.
Let's go, Ike.
We're going to do Ike Davis. Let's do a non-injury. Let's do a non-injury story. Okay. So here's how here's going to be the thing about this. This is a non-injury story. This is a human interest story. I want to find out how you're going to lead into this story. Ike Davis lost his best friend to Ewing sarcoma, which is a horrible cancer bone thing. And he does a lot with his charity. He raises a ton of money for it. He does all these things. He wears a black bracelet for Ewing sarcoma for his friend Mike Lee. Okay? What I want you to do is don't worry about all the details of the story, but I want you to transition. You're watching a baseball game, everyone at home wants this guy to hit a home run. How do you incorporate that story into a game? How do you tell me that Ike Davis is a good guy when all people at home care about is him hitting a home run?
Do you want me to answer that, or do you want me to?
I want you to do it. All right? You tell me when you're ready to compose your thoughts, and I'll send it down.
Okay, go ahead.
Ike Davis, 0-1 count to him, has his first at-bat of the game. Let's go down the field for more.
Well, Kevin, thanks for that. Ike Davis.
That's okay.
Ike Davis really has an interesting background. Back when he was a young child, he lost his best friend to Ewing sarcoma, and since then, he's really been motivated to do a lot for the organization. He raises a lot of money for them. He even wears a black bracelet 24/7 to try to promote awareness for this horrible disease that took his best friend from him at such a young age.
There you go. I like that. What's important about that is, there needs to be some kind of transition, right? It's hard just to say, 0-1 Ike Davis. Guys, Ike Davis lost his best friend in cancer. Back to you. You can't do that. He said, guys, Ike Davis really has an interesting background, and here's why. It was really good. Another way you could have done it is, guys, take a look at Ike Davis's right wrist. There's a black band that says so-and-so. Why? Something like that, too. Transitions, getting into stories to make it relate to the game rather than hitting somebody over the head with it. It was really nice. Good job. Nice hand. Anybody else? I think we're done here. Anybody else last questions or anything you want to ask me at all? And I'll be here for a little bit after class, I guess, if you want, no problem. But let me just say, and I'll get to you. But let me just say thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Yes.
Who's the most interesting man you've interviewed?
Most interesting man I've ever interviewed was Pedro Martinez. Yes. He is a fascinating man. I went to his house in the Dominican Republic, and he's incredible down there. He's like a king down there. I mean, he walks through the streets and hands out money. No, in a good way. I mean, I went down there after a hurricane devastated the island, and he built a school that at the time was populated with everybody that lost their homes. So you walked into the school, and he was not doing this for a publicity stunt. You could tell when somebody is and when somebody's not. He's pretty real. He's a very fascinating guy. He walks into this school. I mean, I'm talking, naked people on the floor, he's sitting in urine. It was heinous because there were so many people that lost their homes, so many, and they had nowhere to go. His school was like one of the only places that withstood the storm, and people could go for shelter while they figured it out. So walk into this awful situation, and I'm with him, my camera guy, and he walks in, like literally this little kid in the corner goes, it says something in Spanish, and essentially Pedro's here. I think they call him Pedro the Great. Word spreads throughout the school. It's a pretty big school. And all of a sudden, everybody comes out of these rooms and starts chanting Pedro the Great. He stands on this thing. This is impromptu, okay? He stands on this thing and gives everybody a speech. I am here. I will make back your homes. We will get through this, blah, 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 blah. And then they all start cheering and going nuts. These people that are laying on the ground with nothing. And it was amazing to see that kind of response and to see like what one guy could mean to the community. Like, you always hear about the term "giving back home." I mean, that was as legit as you'll ever see it. So he took us around to different parts of the country, and then later we were just like hanging at his house, talking, at his farm, and chickens running around. And he was as normal and down to earth as you can be, but using his stardom like as well as anyone could ever use it to help people. It was pretty cool. So I'd have to go him. Yeah.
Who's the biggest jerk in baseball?
Well, for me, Carlos Delgado was, but he's retired now. So I don't know. I have pretty good relationships with most people. I'm lucky, I guess. I don't really know A-Rod. I know people complain about him. I've talked to him a few times, but I don't have any kind of relationship to really judge him. So.
What did Delgado do?
He just wasn't a great guy. He made your life miserable when he could. He was like the big bully in high school who, pinned you against the locker room when he could. It was just weird for a great player. I thought he'd be more than that, but he wasn't. Yes.
What's your favorite ballpark that you've ever been on?
Favorite ballpark? I have. Well, there's a couple, but I'd have to say AT&T in San Francisco. Anybody ever been? Oh yeah, so we got a few. Place is off the hook, awesome. Great park, great sights, and one of the coolest things ever, even though he's gone now, is Tommy John surgery. Brian Wilson, when he was closing games there, his entrance song was Jump Around by House of Pain. And it was the sickest thing ever. So, ninth inning would come on, and all of a sudden, Brian Wilson is this absolute nut job. All of a sudden, Jump Around comes on, and like the entire stadium is like, hands up, jumping around. The place is shaking, and it was cool. So that's probably my favorite. San Diego's a close second. San Diego's a close second.
like the best game you've ever been to?
You mean as a professional or just as a fan? You mean working?
Yeah, like,
I mean, the no-hitter has to go to the top because you don't see things like that. I have to think off the top of my head.
like, is there anything like really big that stands out?
You know, I mean, I've covered Super Bowls. I've been to some big games. But when you're with a team and are around them all the time and see, you know, big games with them, it's a little different. You know, because you get to know the players that are involved. And while, you know, just like any other job, I mean, I'm more friendly with some guys than I am with others. You know, I'm a reporter first, and they know that. So, you know, I have to be fair and partial, whether good or bad happens, and they all know that, you know. So if I say something on television they don't like, they could confront me the next day and ask me why I said that. But at the same time, you do root for people, you know. A guy like Mike Pelfrey is no longer with the Mets, like the greatest guy ever. So, you know, when he'd go out and have a good game, you know, I would do my normal reporting, but I would feel good for him. You know, I'd feel happy that he had a good game, things like that. That's how I would describe it. Yes.
Do you ever go into the game and think like, oh, it's just my job, like just another day I have to report, or do you always think something exciting is gonna happen?
I think you go into the games sometimes tired. I mean, the one negative about it is, and there's a lot of travel. You know, I mean, I'm away from home for 150 days out of the year, at least. I'm on a lot of planes. There are days when you're just exhausted. You know, no amount of 5-hour energy can help you. So I think there's those days you go in and you're just exhausted. But I think the beauty of what I do, and I think of what a lot of you in this room will do, whether it's on camera, behind the camera, whatever it is, there's so many different things you can do with this type of degree, is that it's always different. You know, you don't have to go in and have a stack of papers in front of you and just go through that to the time you leave. It's always different. I mean, the games are always going to be different. Something different is always going to happen. You know, the music project that you're working on is, you know, I think that's the beauty of this whole industry, is that every single day is different. Did I go to the park that day thinking I was going to see a no-hitter? No, I did not. But I knew it's a game, it's fun. I mean, I'm making a living, you know, watching these things. It's the greatest thing in the world. I'm a lucky guy. Yes?
What's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you on live TV?
Pie.
Oh boy. Let me think about that one.
Pie. You're 40.
What's that?
Pie.
Oh yeah. I've gotten pied a couple times on TV. That's a really good question. I guess I'll go with the pie theme, but it wasn't Turner. The Mets had this guy a couple years ago, J.J. Putz. And he was a monster of a man. I mean, he was like, Gah! You know, like one of these guys. And so, you know, he was cool when he came to the team. Sometimes you don't know how to react to new guys. They could be a little bit in your face, and you don't know if it's fun or if it's like really like he's too much in my face. So he was like, I liked him. He was just a pretty cool guy, and he did all these pieing things. And so we talked trash, you know. I was like, I can't wait till I get you with a pie. And he's like, oh yeah, right. He's like, I'm gonna get you. You're dead. Whatever. I said, yeah, right. So he came on. We did a Mets hot stove show from a bar down in Port St. Lucie for spring training. And honestly, my guard was completely down. I wasn't thinking. He came on for an interview and then left. And most guys, when they leave the restaurant. He, of course, did not. Went back, they ordered a burger, got a whipped cream pie. And then I'm like, all right, everybody, thanks for watching. He comes up, bang!
All right, guys, unfortunately, that's all our time. All you guys, get back to class.